In today's recording, we're going to go ahead and talk about clefs. Now, clefs are interesting in the sense that they are symbols that specifically show us where middle C is. And we actually have a variety of different kinds of clefs, and clefs have changed all throughout, medieval, Renaissance period, and of course, I might be going in the wrong order of things, but like all the way through time we've had different clefs. People have drawn them super strange and taught how to draw them in different ways, and there are only a select few that we actually end up using consistently here within the modern day. Now, of course, we know treble clef and bass clef quite well, but we also have the presence of two other clefs, alto and tenor clefs. These two clefs are considered C clefs, and the reason why is because of their shape. You'll notice the fact that they look exactly the same. They look like these weird fancy Bs that are like not fully completed. And the reason why is because the inner portion of this bracket here, so specifically this middle portion right here, and then right here, they're specifically telling you where middle C is, and that's one of the reasons why we call them C clefs. The treble clef, for us, middle C is below. Again, we call the treble clef or the G clef, partially because it kind of looks like a G, and also whenever we draw it, we oftentimes will tend to start from the G line whenever we start that curl. The bass clef is also called the F clef. Again, similarly, we could technically make something that looks like an F. I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch. That big dot right there is on the same line where F is. And so middle C is up above F. Okay. So again, treble clef is also known as the G clef. Bass clef is also known as the F clef. For the alto clef is used mostly by violists. You don't really see the alto clef all too often, but it does show up from time to time. Same thing with the tenor clef. Tenor sax could play it. There's a variety of other, I think, woodwind instruments that also might play this clef. I could totally be wrong, but I remember a piece of music that I was working on where I was working with a bassoonist who ended up playing in the tenor clef. So with these ones, again, because of where these signs are placed, that middle portion is telling you that this line here, all of a sudden, that is middle C. This line here, which is now the fourth line, is now middle C. So it's defining a certain rule of this is middle C, and then you can go ahead and go from there. Now, you might wonder, okay, why do we have this? We actually have another clef called the soprano clef, which looks exactly like this. But it has everything to do with the ranges of our instruments. With the piano can go really, really low and really, really high. But not all instruments can do that. That's why we have differences between string instruments like the violin, the viola, or the cello, or even the double bass. Violins are super high, violas kind of sit in the middle range, cellos are lower, and then double basses are the lowest. And so because of that, this gives us more room on the staff for, like, let's say an instrument that can play somewhat above middle C, but plays predominantly down here. And so it allows you to have a clef that doesn't have you like reading, ledger lines all over the place. Because again, that becomes a little frustrating and hard to read. So it's actually in some ways a way of simplifying the way that we end up reading notes. But now, in this next section specifically, you're going to practice identifying. With these ones, I would try using the letters and the register numbers, okay? So again, like right here for the alto clef, this is C4 right here, and this is also C4. So you have to be very, very careful, okay? That just because they're on those, lines of the staff that we're so used to using for things that are closer to the 5 range of our registers, these are still, in the 4 range. But here for the treble clef, we'll go ahead and start with the first couple of these, and then we'll focus more so on the alto and tenor that are at the bottom of the page. But we have C4, which is middle C. After that, we have this one. So again, it's a line to a line, so we skip up from C to E is the first line, skip up again, we get G4. Again, you could keep going up the lines, right? G, B, D, F. Now this is F, but you have to be careful. Along the way, we passed C5, which is that third space there. So this would be F5. And we'll go and stop there, and I'll have you kind of figure out the rest of the answers there. And again, in the comments, you can go ahead and try and put in your answers. And then for those of you who haven't checked out the comments, you can kind of take a look there. But we'll see if anyone ends up coming up with the right answers for these. In terms of the bass clef notes, again, the bottom notes that you should really know are like the first line, which is G2, okay? Or you can use C2 as an option as well in terms of having some sort of a landmark. Either one of those work. But right here we have specifically F2. Again, this is a G. So again, you could go from the F and you go A, C, E, G and make your way up. That's one option. You could also work your way down from middle C, as has been done in other videos. But when you get here, again, you have to ask yourself what register is it in. So again, right here, the third space down, this is C3 right here. So that right there is going to be G3. Because of course, middle C, which is up here, is C4. Okay. Then we have this one, the note right below C4, which is B3. Here, if we were to go down, we could go B, G, E, C, and then we go down a step, right? So again, as I'm doing that, I'm going down by skips through all the spaces, and then I end up landing on B2. So again, I would go ahead and try that. Use as many landmark notes as you possibly can. And again, one of the things that will help you in terms of memorizing these notes is to pay attention to what line or what space that you're on. Those two things can help you out a ton, right? Now, for these ones, let's go ahead and take a look at these. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of these, and then, again, you can go from there. Now, again, this middle line right here, so this middle line for the alto clef, as we call it, is going to be middle C, so that's C4. So this note that's right next to it, this right here is the note right above it, right? We go from a line to a space, that's a step up, so this is D4. Now, if I'm going from a line to a line, again, this is where your relationships are going to be important, but let's say that I started on middle C, which is that line, and then I went down a line, right? That's a skip down. So a skip down from middle C, A3, A3, okay? If I were to go ahead and start from middle C and make my way up, so we have C4, E4, G4, this would be A4 up here. And then I'll leave the last one here for you. At any point during this video, if you want to go ahead and pause and kind of take a second to try and figure out the rest of these, absolutely go ahead and do so. I'm moving through these quite quickly, but main reason why is because, again, later on you're eventually going to want to be at this speed. Now, here for the tenor clef, again, all of a sudden we're changing where middle C is. Middle C is now this fourth line. So again, if I'm going from that fourth line and I'm going down to the next space, this will be the letter B, specifically the B below middle C, which is a B3. If I'm going from middle C, which is that line, up a line, that would be E. I have to go to the next space, so this would be F4. Now, one of the cool things about this in general is, if I'm being quite honest, is that for us, whenever we're looking at the treble clef, the third space, right? The third space is usually C5. So technically, if you wanted to think about it this way, with the alto clef, again, so this note right here is usually where C is, but actually it's a D. This right here is usually where a G is, but it's actually an A. So with the alto clef, it's almost like looking at the note. Look at the note, figure out what letter it is, and then the real correct letter is actually the letter above it. And that works out really, really well. For the tenor clef, it's just the opposite. So like, for example, here, if I was in the treble clef, this would be a C, right? The third space would be a C, but the actual note is a B. Here in the treble clef, that would be a G, but the actual note is the F. So oftentimes, a really quick shortcut is that when you read these, you can read these as the treble clef, and for the alto clef, the real note is the note or the letter above. For the tenor clef, it's the opposite. So if I'm reading this one as a treble clef note, the real letter that we're looking for is actually the letter below. If that last statement about this like little trick confused the heck out of you, that's perfectly fine. I would screw it. Don't even worry about it. Okay. But what I would do is that I would definitely focus on making sure that everything here, you're basing it off of your steps and your skips and your understanding of, okay, for the alto clef, the third line is middle C. For tenor clef, the fourth line is middle C. And this specifically has been the video on clefs.